Hey everyone, so for chapter weekly reviews, I'll either do recaps or just provide you with some additional pertinent information that I think you all might need to be paying attention to, or perhaps just bringing in something else for the week. So, reflecting on diversity and inclusion, I want you all to think of a couple questions. And these are things that I hope that you reflect upon throughout the semester, but especially in this week, learning about diversity and inclusion, having your own thoughts on those two definitions, but also having your own thoughts on diversity as a whole. So, how do they affect opportunities? How do they how are they irrespective of their individual or people's individual differences? So these are the things that you need to keep in mind and how we can make it fair and equitable for all. And I think it's important to understand intersectionality. And you may have heard about this word, intersectionality, but it really is a framework for conceptualizing a person or a group of people or a social problem, let's say, affected by a number of discriminations and disadvantages. So it takes into account people's overlapping identities. So, for example, people are often disadvantaged by multiple sources. So, this could be their race, their class, their gender, sexual orientation, religion, or other identity markers, their ableism. So, the intersectionality recognizes that those identity markers. So, you could be a woman and you could be Black, and you could be a male and you can be Asian. So these do not exist independently of each other, and both are in one form. They often create more of a complex oppression of, let's say, for instance, a Black man and a white man are going to, or a white woman are going to make a different amount of dollar, right? So respectfully, the Black man makes 74 cents to every 78 cents to a white woman's dollar. But Black women face even multiple forms of that oppression. So understanding how intersectionality is really essential to combating these interwoven prejudices people face in their daily lives. And it's very important for this class and this chapter specifically. So your book will obviously define diversity as a socially meaningful differences among a group. So again, I want you all to sort of define this without going too much into it before what you thought it was about. But these are some of the key points that I think that you all should pay attention to. Again, the differences, they can be objective and subjective, but essentially we have to celebrate each other's differences. And inclusion obviously is the degree to which people are free to be themselves, where you feel like you can actually be your authentic self. And these are some of the key points with that. So, do I feel valued at my place of work, whether it's a sport industry or not? Am I recognized? So let's say if you were going to work at a Division 1 university and that university did not recognize your same-sex partner. Those are things you're going to maybe perhaps have to think about. And if you do not have a same-sex partner, if you are heterosexual, you might not often think about those things that others have to think about before they take the job, or why you cannot build diversity within your organization. So obviously there's different forms of diversity, and your chapter will go over these forms: surface level, deep level, right? And then obviously there's an understanding the emphasis on diversity. So I know it's been a crazy year with everything that's going on, but it's important to understand the history behind a lot of these things, and a history behind somebody's upbringing and their culture and their values. And again, this is just a continuation. So this also applies to, let's say you go into an industry and you're a 22-year-old, you're a social media genius, but those around you are not really, I guess, inept to use that all of a sudden, and they're not inept to change. And so there's also that diversity too, that impacts you going into the industry as well. So if they're not willing to change, it's going to be very hard on you. Or they, vice versa, they may look at you as not knowing very much because you're so young, when in fact you may know a lot more than they think. So all these have an impact on the changing demographics and how diversity changes with that. Also, I wanted to point out the organizations that really do put an emphasis on diversity. Most organizations will have their, the code word diverse or inclusive in their mission statements, but not often. I mean, not all of them do. But organizations such as the Y were born on principles of diversity and being inclusive of the organization and to build that gap. So again, we'll talk about legal mandates throughout the semester, but a big one is Title IX, of course, Title VII. These are the Civil Rights Act. These are all parts of learning diversity, and they have an emphasis on diversity. So legally, what is fair? Legally, what is in the law to might be in one state and not in another, and that might hinder where you go and work or how you go and work. So again, understanding the benefits of it. Obviously, there's a lot of positive outcomes that can be seen with having a diverse organization. If you have people that are the same as you may not have those innovative ideas to bring to the forefront. So really understanding that and celebrating each other's differences. Of course, there's negative effects, right? People are not, like we talked about, are not inept to change. They don't really want to change. They don't want to see diversity. They just want to see somebody that looks like them, has the same ideas, those types of things. And that's not always a good thing when your stakeholders are changing, when your athletes perhaps are changing, and the community is changing around you. Again, what we talked about, if you're pretty much stuck in your ways, the unfortunate part is things will change. And so, just from this chart, the demographics will change. So it's important that we understand that and we change with it. For example, here, globalization on a baseball team where players might be from one baseball team. Again, you all have one goal in mind, and that's to win a championship. But if you have the same player, if you have 11 pitchers or 10 rather pitchers, and 9 pitchers and 8 pitchers and 7 pitchers, and you don't have anybody that can play first base or second base or anybody that can hit the ball to the left field or whatever it is, then it's not going to work. And so this is just to show you it's pretty much not that different from your classmates and colleagues. We have a really big class, so historically, maybe culturally, we'll be from around the world. And that's something to celebrate. So again, those negative effects, right? We don't want to appreciate differences, and they're seen as deficits, and that's just not a good thing, because we've already seen so many positives of having the diversity within an organization. So again, somebody might look up to, it's a reflection of your community, your stakeholders, all those things that we just reviewed. And lastly, this is a great quote, obviously from Peter Robbie, that you all can see up here. But of course, sport is always celebrated for bringing people together from different backgrounds from all around the world, but it could also have a negative effect. So it's important that we keep celebrating and being inclusive and understanding diversity. And so what you may not see on the outside, maybe something on the inside that we can still celebrate, and you can still come to an understanding. So again, this is something to think in mind. Can sports serve as an educational tool and help create social change? We've had a lot of that this year. This come out in the past years. You could see things like the Olympics, like Muhammad Ali, those types of things, activism. Again, we won't go too much into the sociological aspects, because diversity, when we talk about this class, it's really from an organizational standpoint, but you can see how sport does serve that tool, or rather serves as a tool. So this is what I like is diversity is being asked to the party and inclusion is being asked to dance. So of course, in order to fully integrate the understanding and appreciating for diverse cultures and the background for its employees, it's important that we embrace these things. All right, so this week, read chapter 1. You got a chapter 1 quiz, a syllabus quiz, your participation discussion. I know it's a lot of work, but I know you can do it. And, this, again, we're a fairly large class. There's going to be some great topics, I think, that you all will be able to handle really well. And I hope that you learn. And this is just week 1. So if you have any questions, just let me know.